I didn't expect to be back with one of these so soon, but me and my partner saw Big Lebowski in theaters. They brought it back through Fathom Events for the 25th anniversary, and it was a pretty chill time. There were maybe like 20 other people in there, even though it was like a pretty sizable theater to watch it in. Besides getting the same 3 ads over and over again for other Fathom programming that's coming down the pipeline, there was a nice trivia slide section that had this admittedly creepy ambience of like an audience chatting and seats creaking and people walking around and stuff, and it was kind of like foreboding, unintentionally so. The trivia itself was fun, and it challenged people who were more familiar with the movie. You know, stuff as obscure as who was considered to be in the movie. Supposedly they considered approaching Marlon Brando for who I assume to be the Big Lebowski. Definitely made me curious. I'd want to see who else they've considered putting in their movies. They, them, there. The Coens, of course. The Big Lebowski is one of the most renowned cult movies of its time, or arguably any time. I first introduced myself to it by taking it from the library back in high school, and while I didn't necessarily know what to make of it upon first watch, I definitely thought it was funny. If you hop into a movie like that, itself being a detective movie starring a stoner where not a whole lot happens, there's already enough potential for memers in the late 2000s, early 2010s, who like random stuff, who like non sequitur humor, who maybe like Napoleon Dynamite. In fact, recently, a dear friend of mine who had never seen it before watched it with their partner and immediately described it as Napoleon Dynamite for grown-ups. That's apt. That's actually super apt. It's less about a plot or a concrete series of happenings than it is a bunch of vignettes and moments strung together, with a lot of quotable lines, a lot of unorthodox direction choices on behalf of the filmmakers. Of course, it being a Coen's film, it's handled with a lot of care, with a lot of attention to dialogue and character. And one overlooked point is that it was shot by Roger Deakins, who these days is pretty much considered the GOAT when it comes to cinematography. There's plenty to love in this movie. Jeff Bridges and John Goodman and Steve Buscemi are an amazing trio of bumbling fools who are trying to traverse this complicated, supposed matter of life and death in a kidnapping. For those of you who haven't watched it, highly recommend you go and do that before you listen to the rest of this podcast. For those of you who are touching base just because you want to kill 15, 20 minutes, however long this ends up being, I hope you enjoy the ride home from the theater to my house with my partner, June. Here we go.
It's like, wait!
Be careful, man. There's a beverage here.
All right, Bub. How did you feel on your however many viewing?
I'm trying to... The last time I watched this movie might have actually been, like, pre-2016.
It had to be, right?
Yeah. Now, obviously, I watched it in high school and multiple times after that, mostly for the meme factor.
That movie is so silly.
It's one of the silliest, but it's also like, it's how I like my silly. It's like silly in a profound, intelligently done way. Because something that I've grown to appreciate is how, let's put a normal-ass dude in a hard-boiled detective story where he's not really hard-boiled, but he's definitely not all the way dumb. He's just high. So when he regains his faculties, he's actually able to, like, sleuth proper. But I think something that really struck home harder this viewing more than any before, now that I'm older, is how much of a loser everyone, literally everyone in the movie is, except for maybe, like, Maud. You kind of assume she's, like, the cracked out eccentric living her life in spite of everything, when really she's the most adjusted adult. Meanwhile, her father's a prick and a loser. Her prospective father of her child that she wants is a loser, but he's, like, at home with it. He's comfortable with it.
Yeah, he's okay with it. Yeah. He doesn't care.
He has zero pretense of where he's going. Meanwhile, everyone around him has an agenda. John Goodman is
the best.
Oh my, I love that character so goddamn much.
Infuriating. I have to say, I was infuriated through half of it. Just being like, dude, come on.
What I love about Walter is, on top of just being one of the more quotable characters and one of the more, like, well-acted characters, He's a loser in that he feels the need to interject his politics into literally everything.
He reminds me of, like, the trope that everyone's using for Republicans right now.
Yeah, because the guy he was based on was like a staunch, good old boy reactionary. He was just really cool about it. So that's why the Coens were like, yeah, sure. We'll use him in a thing.
On this viewing, I like Maude more.
Mm-hmm. We actually knew what the fuck she was going on about, I guess.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I feel this. This is fine. Though I wanted to strangle the British guy who was hanging out with her. It's like, this man needs to leave.
No, he was just living his best life. I think one of the more beautiful parts about the movie is, regardless of where you fall and what persuasion you're of, there's some character for everyone in there to kind of be like on the same page with. Mm-hmm. I definitely relate more to the dude, like IRL, than I ever did before.
Okay.
I think when I initially watched it, I was still in movie brat mode, so I was kind of watching it from a spaceship. Now, having seen how tired and how beaten down that motherfucker is, I totally respect the fact that all homie wanted was his rug.
All he wanted was his rug. It really tied the room together.
It really tied the room together.
I mean, I get it, though. Though the one thing I didn't notice that I noticed this time, one, Sam Elliott's character, above all else, the best. I have a thing that I love Sam Elliott in anything that he does.
He's the best at being Sam Elliott.
Like, he plays Sam Elliott, but I like it, though. There's something about it. So
there's a reason he still gets work, because he's like the last living example of that.
Yeah.
Besides maybe Clint, but he's too busy being like
yelling at empty chairs.
I was gonna say directing, but that too, I guess.
But I mean, besides that, like Sam, I don't know. I really like his vibe and like just who he is. And so what's really interesting is having him as the quote narrator.
Yeah.
For it instead of Jeff Bridges, which is really interesting. And then also the idea that they hinted at that the dude is Jesus at the very end.
What you mean? Oh, the fact that he's out there?
And living his life for us sinners.
Well,
he says that outright, which makes me laugh because I know the movie's not doing that.
But it's the kind of film where
they could be, though.
Yeah, it's like a comfort film, but it's like a Brainiac film at the same time. Like, I say this ad nauseum whenever I do one of my film club meetings with my boys. I like movies that accommodate whatever frame of mind you're in. So if you stretch a bit before watching it, yes, it's a bogey. It's The Long Goodbye. But it's also a really effective stoner comedy, and now that I've partaken, I can really explain what that means. It's when the storytelling, without proper, like, priming ahead of time, is going to come off hella fucking dumb. Like, pants on head stupid. And on that level, it works. That's why fucking middle schoolers and high schoolers like it. It's like, haha, so random. But the dude and several other characters throughout the movie will just straight up be having totally different conversations than what's being presented. So the very first, like, post-opening credit convo is the dude and Walter talking about something, Donnie showing up to talk about something, Walter starting a separate conversation, how Donnie just comes in the middle of conversations with no frame of reference, while trying to continue having the conversation he's having with dude. And, like, from a screenwriting standpoint, I've always liked that. From a pot user standpoint, that's it all the time. Definitely for me, definitely for other people. And they even carry it over when Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is trying to, like, explain the luxurious legacy of the bigger Lebowski, and the dude's, like, focusing on Nancy or the kids, and will continue to do so even though Home Skillet is trying to, like, talk about the next frame on the wall. Like, he's living in his own world, going at a perfectly reasonable pace for him, which sets the tone for how he handles the intrigue and the mystery. He's very within his own bubble, but he's still, like, putting pieces together. which I love that.
Okay, so I don't smoke or do any kind of drugs ever except prescription ones that I am prescribed specifically.
Everybody gets high in their own special way at some point.
My brain does it by itself.
Right, that's what I mean.
But manic high and pot high are so different.
Yeah. Happy 420, everyone.
Happy 420. But anyway, what's interesting to me as someone who isn't like that, watching this and how it's written and put together, I can still follow it really well. I think that's part of the neurodivergent nonsense too.
Very well could be.
Because I can follow a lot of shit all at once. It's very weird. But the thing is, though, is like nothing happens at the end of the day. Like everything happens and nothing happens.
Yeah, a ton happens. It's just nothing of consequence.
Yeah, nothing of substance. Just weird shit strung together happened to the same guy.
Right.
And all these other people are making it seem really, really important. And then they put it all together at the end and they go, oh, this is what happened.
Which is not much.
Which is a lot to certain people, but to him specifically, not shit.
It's not a big fucking deal.
Yeah, all he knows is he doesn't have a rug. Like, that's all happened to him at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's like, what do they call Seinfeld? The show where nothing happens?
Yeah.
That's kind of this movie.
Show about nothing. Which sounds trolly and haha, but I'm at a point in my life where you can still
No, it's still good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No, for sure. I'm saying you can mine wisdom from inconsequence, because what the fuck is anything else?
Yeah, well,
Like,
and
you
then
have a dude who served in Nam and has decided that's his whole identity for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Which is comic, but it also makes him feel real, and it makes sense that the dude would want to be friends with him because they see stuff in each other that they don't see in themselves. That's, I guess, what friendship is. And even the fact that the dude has a landlord who's like kooky and weird and does weird abstract ballet
and they went and supported
They supported him.
That was the cutest shit.
They didn't know what the fuck was going on, but goddamn it, they were gonna go see their bud.
And they had important shit going on. But he was like, after this,
Yeah.
we're gonna stay. And I'm like, that is the coolest shit though. Like, weird wholesome nuggets like that are fabulous.
Blink and you'll miss it, of course. Like, there's so many sub-threads in this movie that it took me 3 or 4 watches to catch. But this watch, seeing it on the big screen and like having found my faculties in life in general, there was a bit more for me to chew on. Like, all the circumstantial ideology that every character has to like express throughout the movie, I have like a better sense of what that is, which makes it fucking funnier.
Yeah, I found the absurdity, and I don't normally like absurdist humor, but like this does it in a way that I'm like, oh, okay, all right, that's hilarious. Like,
I'll put it this way: I have grown to like Monty Python's surrealism and like absurdity more.
I like it
since growing up.
Okay, I always liked Monty Python. I think because British absurdity is a little drier.
Yeah.
I've always been like a dry humor person. Yeah. So like for me, this movie was a little bit too stoner comedy. And the only stoner comedy I've ever liked is Pineapple Express.
Oh, that's a good one.
But I did enjoy watching this now, understanding more, and, you know, kind of being a little bit more
along for the ride.
Yeah, because like I don't know, I try to like guess the ending and
oh well, I think that's one of my favorite parts of this movie.
And you can't.
Right.
You cannot.
Like, you sort of can if you watch it like a hawk, but then they explain away a bunch of stuff like towards the end.
And then you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing doesn't make any sense.
And I'm sure there's even some bogeys that operate on the same flow and rules, but I'm a dumpus. I'm never in it to like really put the pieces together while I'm trying to just like enjoy a narrative. Like even watching something like The Batman recently, which is a more proper detective story compared to past Batmans, I had to wait until we got to like principal beats to like know what's happening, because that's how my brain works. But I can still enjoy like a good mystery, and this has like elements of that as trappings for like a broader story about just live your life, dog.
Yeah. Though I'm still kind of stuck on the weird, offhanded Jesus quip.
It could be there, it could not. The idea of Jesus being a long-haired hippie socialist has been done to death in general, to the point where, yeah, that might actually hold water for Big Lebowski specifically.
But it's just, I didn't notice it the first time around, so...
I don't think I noticed how Jesus-y he looked until you pointed it out.
Well, no, Sam Elliott literally says it, so then I was like, wait a minute!
I just took it as, like, brevity, you know, like a little offhanded meme. But
No, it's the Coens. It has to have more to it.
yeah, well, the Coens, what I like most about this movie is the same reason I like, you know, Pulp Fiction, more recently Nope. I like Americana by way of people who like a little bit of everything. So those guys, they like their Raymond Chandler shit, they like their noirs from the 40s, but they're also big Western heads, and they would, like, hop back and forth between all those modes, using the dude as like an avatar through which to experience them. He's the one guy who's not taking his life so seriously that he starts to feel like a trope beyond the dude, no matter what's happening to him.
And I think that's why I like the Coens too, is because I kind of vibe with that kind of Americana where I'm like, all right, this I can get behind. Though bits and pieces of it almost felt like I was watching a Tarantino film.
For sure. Same ballpark, same era.
Yeah, so I was like, is this? And then something else would be said, and I'd be like, oh, no, that's not the same. Okay. But there were some moments where I was like, am I though?
Yeah, he's a bit more forward with referential stuff, but the way that characters talk to each other, plus the casting, is very Indies 90s. 90s Indies nuts. Do you want to come in, or are you done for the night?
I gotta go.
Okay, that's fine. Well, thank you for helping me record this segment. I'm gonna put other stuff on either side of it.
Cool.
Most likely. I hope this audio isn't shit.
All in all, I give The Big Lebowski an 8.5.
Well, that's just, like, your opinion, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I don't believe in numbers. They're not real.
To reveal the new skin me. I don't think this is what I'm gonna do every time I do one of these, but whatever. It's a good ass soundtrack in that movie, you know what I'm saying? I just walked in to see what condition my Lanooski was in. Yeah, oh yeah, what condition my Lanooski was in.
Careful, man. Are you recording already?
I could be. Whether or not all this bric-a-brac goes in,
Okay.
we'll see.
Well...